Buckeye Talk outside the Woody Hayes Athletics Center. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com. Along with Stephen Means, we were inside the Woody for the rest of this afternoon watching Ohio State's Pro Day. Guys running the 40, guys doing other drills, guys catching passes from C.J. Stroud. Stephen, who kind of jumps to the front of your mind from what you saw today of Ohio State guys who helped themselves today at Pro Day?
I think Master Teague helped himself. I don't think it gets him drafted, but I think it's a surefire he gets a camp invite from somewhere, because we've joked about it for years, the idea of when he's going north and south, he's awesome. It's when he actually has to go east and west. And his 40 time, I mean, he was moving on both of those. I was kind of paying attention to the running back drills a little bit after they got done throwing, and he was doing pretty quality there as well. Like I said, it's not going to help him to the point where I feel like he's going to be a 6th or 7th round pick. He didn't even get a combine invite. But for a guy who had to basically do everything today because he didn't get that combine invite, I think he did some stuff to help himself today because people saw his athleticism, especially at that size. But also, he's built.
He's an insane physical specimen. I think people already knew that. I think he helped himself today, too, in a lot of the ways you're talking about. I was standing afterwards with his dad, and a guy who's the scouting guy for the XFL came over and was like, listen, I don't know what they're going to do with him, but he did really well today. So Master Teague can play pro football. It may not be a big role in the NFL, but there's a place in pro football for Master Teague, and I think he showed that today. A guy who, for everything I know we talked about the strengths versus limitations, but he also had injuries this past year. He had COVID this past year. He was talking about, like, he didn't climb the depth chart this year. Like, a lot of things didn't go right for him, and then didn't get a combine invite. So today I think was a big day for him. He had a lot kind of on his shoulders, and they're big shoulders, fortunately, and he was able to still run with them. A guy who helped himself today also was C.J. Stroud, which I think we thought was going to be the case, and I think NFL teams seemed pretty impressed with him. I thought, had a really fun attitude about this today. He talked about how he was nervous when he first got out there to throw, and then you throw a couple, and you're like, oh, no, I've been doing this for a while, and you settle into it again. And by the end of it, you could tell that, like, some of the things that we were seeing from him late last season, and I was there in New York for him through the Heisman process and stuff, not for him, with him, and you could tell, like, I thought it was, like, getting to him a little bit. Like, I think the season was kind of wearing on him. The attention, the whatever was wearing on him a little bit. You have that Rose Bowl. You have a few months off. You have a day like this. He just seems to be a guy who was very comfortable, but knew today that as much as he was helping Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, he was also showcasing himself a little bit today.
Yeah, I actually asked Chris and Garrett because they did this similar thing last year where they were helping Justin. And as much as you want to put the focus on we're showcasing Justin, it's hard to not, showcase yourself a little bit with some of the catches they were making last year. CJ kind of did some of the same stuff. Now, he wasn't perfect because it's not his pro day. He doesn't have to be perfect. He's helping those guys along. And there were a couple of throws that a year from now when he's doing that, you would want him to hit. But there were also some moments where it felt like, yeah, we're all here to watch Garrett and Chris, but you could tell by how a lot of the NFL people were interacting with him that this was kind of like the early sneak preview of the C.J. Stroud show that might be coming up next year. And they're probably going to do the same thing at Tuscaloosa, even if Bryce Young isn't the guy helping the receivers out at Pro Day. But, yeah, this felt like we're here for Garrett and Chris, but we're actually here for C.J., which is, that's what happens when you have a bad quarterback class.
Yeah, and I don't know what the situation will be in Alabama because obviously Jameson Williams probably isn't doing pro day stuff. But here you had two guys who it made sense to have their quarterback go throw for them because they're going to be first-round guys who want to be showcased the right way. And it is interesting because, like, this quarterback carousel that happened this offseason, you don't know who's going to be drafted at the top of the first round next year. I've got a couple good guesses, but you don't know for sure who's going to be drafted at the top of the first round. And I think there probably are some teams that are thinking ahead, like, we're gonna be in that position next year, and this is a guy we should pay attention to. Last guys I wanted to mention, I thought the defensive linemen today helped themselves. Tyreek Smith looked good. He had a long conversation off to the side by himself with Lovie Smith, from now the Texans head coach. I thought Antoine Jackson looked pretty good today for another guy who didn't get a combine invite. And for some of these guys, this is their one shot. We already talked about Master Teague. They can get invited to individual workouts and things like that, but for some of these guys, this is their one shot to show what they can do besides what was on film. This is their one chance to say, hey, sometimes this part of my athleticism didn't show up. Let me display it for you.
Yeah, and I'll throw Nicholas Petit-Frere in there. After he and Thayer got done with the the main part. They pulled him off to the side and were doing stuff. And you saw a lot of that athleticism, that why he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. And then we were asking him, hey, are teams still asking you about your weight problems that you had early on? It's like, no, they get it. It took me a while to put the weight on, but now that I put it on, they like what they see. He's not a first rounder, but I think he helped himself today. I think it's a no-brainer. He's probably a top 60, top 70 pick at this point. I think he really helped himself because he got a chance to really show off that athleticism in a way that when the last thing you put on tape was the Michigan game, between what he did at the Combine and what he did today, I think he really helped himself.
NFL draft starts April 28th. Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson say they're both going to be there for the opening night of the draft, and we will be bringing you a lot of intel between now and then, including on the Buckeye Talk podcast. And get the text 614-350-3315.